All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, Cincinnati Comic Expo 2014, the fifth one. Have you been having a great time? We have, approximately an hour left before the whole weekend is over, but it's been a great weekend. Actually, how many of you, let's just do a show of hands, how many of you had a whole weekend pass? All right, so you were there. Okay, keep your hand up if you were here in this panel on Friday. Okay, so there's a few of you. Now, I did promise on Friday there's going to be some different questions. We might have some of the questions that are the same, but there's some new things and a few new surprises, so I'm glad you came back. All right, so, yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Aloysius Fox. I'm sort of in charge of the Pandora Society. We put on a lot of events in Cincinnati. We also run a website called McGann.com. We run some geeky articles and very sort of steampunk, but we're also very much into Doctor Who. You may have noticed Doctor Who, steampunk, kind of a lot of crossover, especially with the gentleman who is about to come in. So, the expo is almost over. And I'm sure you've heard the expression about saving the best to last. And you're all going to agree with me that we saved the best to last this weekend, right? The final panel for the Expo 2014 is the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann. So, oh, and here he comes. I was going to say a little bit more about Mr. McGann before we brought him in, about how, you noticed lately...
Don't embarrass me.
No, I learned my mistake from last time. As you pointed out, there's a lot of Scottish actors who've been playing the Doctor, but there have been 2 actors from Liverpool, Mr. Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor, and we have another Scouser who is Doctor Who. And thank you very much for coming back to join us. It's been quite a busy weekend.
So how many of you were here on Friday when we said it? All right, so half the audience. So we should try and do something different.
Yeah, we did. But I did tell them that there'll be a few new questions. I've been taking some suggestions from some...
I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to be surprised as well. So.
I do have the box of surprises here.
Uh-oh. Will it hurt?
No, it might be quite pleasurable.
What do you think of this casino lighting? Can we do anything about it? Is there a way? Is there a dimmer for the overheads? This is like 3 a.m. I just think that they don't put a clock on the wall, so there. Is there a kind of in between? That's worse.
I hope nobody has got problems with strobe lights.
Anyway.
All right.
So you're the diehards. You're the people that lasted the whole weekend. They strike a level for us all. It's been a great weekend. I've had a ball, I tell you.
Actually, I was going to save this to be one of my later questions, but I think I'm going to open with this one then. What have you thought of Cincinnati so far? Because this is your first time in Cincinnati, is that correct?
Yeah, but you're talking to someone that's seen this building, that street outside, and that other building across the street. That's all I've seen in Cincinnati.
Oh.
I can see it. Yeah, but this is what it's like. It's a bit rock and roll when you do these things. You're here for 4 or 5 days and you really don't see it. But I've seen it out of the window. Like I watched the firework display last night. I think I want to get out of there, but I'm too jet-lagged to move. Tomorrow I'll leave town. It will have all been a dream. From what I've experienced, it's a fantastic city, and it's really interesting as well.
Thank you.
This is your home now.
It is my home, yes. Yeah, back in the mid-90s. It's been Canada, I'm also from England. In fact, we found out that in 2002, I actually lived a few streets away. I had no idea.
It's England's tiny.
It is tiny. Everybody lives a few streets away.
Everyone else. Everyone's holding hands to make sure we don't fall off the edge.
So that Scotland doesn't drift away.
Topical. Anyway.
Well, perhaps, because what's going to happen, okay, I'm going to ask Paul a few questions, and then we're going to hand it over to the floor. We have the microphone there. And I kind of wonder maybe with some of the questions, for those of you who live in Cincinnati, maybe a few suggestions as to, what Mr. McGann might want to do with his time.
That's a very good idea. Yeah. I have, tomorrow, before I fly away, I have about 6 or 7 hours to myself. and I'm just going to either get on a bike. Apparently you can hire bikes here, I might just do that, or thank you for that suggestion.
That probably shouldn't be one of the suggestions. That's going to be the same suggestion everyone's going to make when they come up.
And I'm just going to walk around and take the place in and have a look, so far as I can last. I'm an Irishman, so it's a little bit humid here for me, so I might have to take like breaks every 10 minutes. But if anyone can make some good suggestions, that would be much appreciated.
Oh, that would be good.
Thank you very much.
So should we get started?
That's not a podcast.
So in 1996, there was the TV movie, and you replaced Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor. And everybody knows that, you know, Fox has a great reputation for killing good science fiction.
That's just me.
No, there's a history of it. Okay. Sliders, Firefly. So you're in good company. As far as, you know, nobody blames you, everybody blames Fox.
Before you continue with your slating of Fox, listen, I don't love Fox, but there was also Universal and the BBC in this triumph for it. Let me just remind you. Anyway, carry on slating.
I'm sorry, that's why we're going to be more positive in these things. But anyway, so the point being also, you know, most known for, you know, as far as Role in the Doctor for the 1996 movie, a lot of people know, but some people don't, that, you know, you then continued on to do the audio dramas, and still are doing the audio dramas with Right Finish. And then November of last year, the appearance of Night of the Doctor. And this was something I did bring up on Friday, that the other little Berlin, the other Scouser, Tom Baker, is generally known as being the Doctor to have the longest tenure of 7 years. But you've clocked up, actually, if you think about it, you're still continuing to clock up. But you have 9 years under your belt as the Doctor. And so yeah, how does that feel to actually technically be the longest serving Doctor?
You know what, until you told me that, I didn't even know. It wasn't something I even thought about. Because a lot of that time that I was the Doctor, it's been in a kind of fallow period, it's been almost by default. When we did the 1956 movie, of course, Doctor Who had been off the screens for 6 or 7 years. And then you wouldn't see it on the screens for another decade. So, yeah, you're right, technically, you're right. But I've almost stumbled into being they call me the longest and the shortest today. And it's a name I wear with pride. But yeah, I feel a bit of a cheat sometimes, you know, because it's always the other guys that have done the hard work, you know, Matt Smith, David Tennant. Even now, Capaldi's not doing probably 14-hour days for the next 5 years or whatever it is. I've shot 2 little things, I've made a bunch of audios. They brought me back once for 5 minutes or something. To steal all the glory. And so I feel a bit lucky. Is the answer.
Actually, it was 6
I
minutes, not 5.
It was actually 7 minutes 14. So I suppose I'm the luckiest in that regard. And also, I don't really want to work that hard. So I'm happy with that. They want to bring me around every 10 years for 5 minutes. I'm totally happy. It's like coming on in the last 5 minutes to score a penalty. Yes, please.
Opening the jam jar after everybody's had a go at it.
Let's mix metaphors.
Okay, so also on Friday, I mentioned, because, I mean, simply also because it's a favorite movie of mine. And so a quick show of hands, how many have you seen With Nail and Knife? And for those who haven't, you need to check this out. It is on Netflix. Because With Nail and Knife was your first film, that's correct? And also, Paul was starring in it with Richard E. Grant, who you know went on to become Great Intelligence, and a lot of you probably don't know, was almost the 9th Doctor. Can you just tell us a little bit about, you know, With Nail and I? And I've heard a rumor since then that you almost got fired prior to production of this. Is this true?
Yeah, I did actually. Well, I was fired, and then reinstated, but that's not unusual. That kind of thing happens. Lovers fall out, you know what I mean? With Nail and I is a movie that, like you said, it's like the first movie that I did, Richard did, the first movie that the director, Bruce Robinson, directed. And it's almost a definition of a cult hit, in that it played for about 6 weeks when it was first made in '86, it was released in '87, and then disappeared. there were lukewarm reviews of it. People didn't quite understand it. It's an English film, it's a British film. The two are not connected, maybe they are. But no, it was an unusual thing. It was, I suppose, what you call a chamber piece. There are no big action sequences in it. There are no women in it. No fight sequences, no sex, no violence, no car chases. It's basically two young drama students, two men, who have to get out of their flat, their apartment in London, and spend a week in a country cottage. I know it sounds like nothing, but it's a comedy. And if I tell you that despite its failure when it was first released, it's a little bit like the Doctor Who movie. Despite its failure when it was first released, by the end of the millennium, it was on the lists, often by the same critics who panned it when it first came out, as the best movie one of the best movies of the century. I promise you. And now everyone, and certainly in Britain, and wherever I go in the world, incidentally, Australia, massive. People just adore it. They've seen it 20 times. It's one of those movies. It's a little bit like Harold and Maude. You know, it's one of those movies that people just love it and they see it over and over and over and over. So there you go. Go home this evening and find it. And watch it. It is unusual, but it's the thing, along with Doctor Who, that I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of working on. And Richard E. Grant's not bad.
Did you know that there's a drinking game that goes along with the movie?
Oh, yes.
Because Richard E. Grant's character drinks an awful lot.
It's the best, actually, I'll tell you, no word of a lie, aside from the only rival to I think it's the best drunk act ever committed to screen. It's this guy, I tell you, and he's teetotal, Richard. He doesn't drink. He's never drunk in his life. He somehow channeled something and acted in the most fantastic drunk. Nicolas Cage did a similar job in, what was it, Leaving Las Vegas. Fantastic drunk act. This is even better, I think. You've got to see it. That's it.
Thank you very much for indulging me about McGann. I think now we will return to this TV show called Doctor Who, I believe.
I was in that. I was once in that. Yes.
So, I did some calculations, and you were a young lad when the first Doctor Who aired.
Yes, I was.
And so, to review your question then, though, were you a fan of the series, and who was your first Doctor?
I was born in the 50s, so I grew up in the 60s. Then it was William Hartnell, the first one. And I thought he was perfect. I bought it, I was one of those kids, just thought, this is great. Because weirdly, he was younger than I am now. When I started doing it. But he had this long white wig, and people in their 50s in those days seemed older. 50 years. They just did. I got pictures of my grandparents at my parents' wedding, like the age that I am now. They look like old people. You know, in their old people's clothes and their old people's hair. Something's happened in 50 years. You know, middle-aged people, 50s now are like 30s. Anyway, it's all nutrition. It's all nutrition. And a clean conscience. Yeah, right. And what was I saying? Yeah, Bill Hartnell. Yeah, he was the one. And, I don't know if it was the same in the United States, but in the 60s, there were only 3 TV channels here anyway. Have you guys always had like 68 channels?
No.
So it was like that then here as well. So everybody watched everything. Anyway. You just had the TV on, and I remember my dad used to circle, but families would spend the evening in watching TV. It was a family thing, that's what we did. My dad used to circle programs, and we'd get in from school, we'd eat, and then 4 hours of TV watching. And everybody would watch Doctor Who, and all the kids would talk about it in school the next day. So even with the ones who weren't completely grilled by it, you knew it. So, and I think I was one of them. I loved him. I thought he was Hartnell. I think because he had that Hartnell for me. And Capaldi now, I think one of the reasons why Peter Capaldi has been cast in the role, it's for reasons to do with the first Doctor. It's got that gravitas, it's got that seriousness, there's something, it's a pater familiar, there's something familiar about it. In Hartnell, there was a family, you knew that there was a family in those days, in the story. Susan. Yeah, there was Susan, Caroline Ford. So it was a kind of different setup, but it was, anyway, I loved him. And he presented a very serious Doctor, a bit like the new one. And and we liked it. A Victorian almost.
So on the subject of family then, with Susan, my next question to you then, with the audios. I understand that your son Jake participated in one of the audios, playing your great-grandson. How was that to work with Jake on that audio?
I loved it. I was trying not to. Jake was, what is he now? He's 23 now, so he would have been 19 at the time. And he was dead cool about it. But I wasn't. I was like really like overexcited, and I think I embarrassed him. I became proud dad, and he just said to me, "Well, Dad, just do your work. Just calm down, just do your work." He said, "It's okay, it's okay. I've got it covered." But anyway, it's the thing. He's training now to be an actor, Jake, and I think that was the thing that gave him the taste for it. Gave him an honor as well. And Caroline Ford, of course, was there. She was in it. So there was a nice connection right back to the beginning. But Doctor Who's like that. So all the time, most of the things that, when you work on it, you get these great connections to the different eras. And, it's a privilege, that. And I mean that. It's a real privilege.
Now I'm going to run this with this idea of the Doctor's family. We've mentioned his daughter Susan, and we're talking about his great grandson.
Yeah.
Now, my understanding is in the original script for the TV movie, the one that you used for the audition, there was also something about the Doctor's father, Ulysses. And the question was going to be to you, how much do you remember from that script versus what was actually finally filmed?
Very little, actually. No, because it happened so quickly. Mm-hmm. We were called in, but they were also a year apart. That the auditions that we, both my brother and I auditioned for the role of the Doctor. Presumably he read from the same script as I did. But I don't remember that much about it. It looked to me at the time that it had been kind of cobbled together. And I didn't understand the mythology of it, not being steeped in it at the time. So no, I wish I could remember. I wish I was one of those actors with a fantastic photographic memory, but I can never remember my lines anyway. I'm one of those actors like Marlon Brando. I say like Marlon Brando, listen to me, but I need it written on the wall over there, and that'd make me wear my script like I would. I need it written down. So no, I don't remember that much. But I do remember a reference to a father and a family. But they were, at the time, I think he was keen, Phil Siegel this was, who produced the movie, was just keen, I think, to use material in the auditions that was safe. Then, like now, we're beset with problems of secrets and secrecy. It's much harder now because things can leak out on so many more different ways. But I do remember he was quite, not precious, but they were keen to keep it secret at the time.
And the last question then on the idea of the Doctor's family. In that same script as in the audition, so Ulysses was going to be the name of the Doctor's father. And we were also going to get...
I'm glad you know this stuff, because I don't know.
We were also going to get a sort of Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker moment, when in the original script, we were going to find out that your father was also the father of the Master.
Yeah.
And the Doctor and the Master were going to be half brothers.
So, the plans...
How do you think that would have worked out?
I think it might have been something too rich, too quickly, personally. And I think it's something as well that has, it's none of that family stuff's been touched on even since, I think it's almost literally too close to home. But it's elements of that so you can keep in reserve. I've seen with since it's come back in 2005, they've skirted around the issue. But in '96 when we did the pilot, there was a convergence, or rather a divergence. They didn't know quite which way to go with it. The movie that we shot then, the pilot, they call it the movie since, but it was a TV pilot. It was a pilot that, of course, never went to series. And they struggled, I think, to present it. Its chief function was to find an audience in the United States. It sounds ludicrous now, because it's like yesterday. Now it's a huge audience in the United States. But they were convinced that one existed. But they didn't tune in sufficient numbers for this thing to be made into a series. That's how it happened. But the function of the pilot, and probably the reason that the pilot never went to sea, the reason that it failed, was that it was going to try and locate this audience in the United States with the material, with this single 90-minute episode. But while not putting the noses out of joint of the people back home that had followed the thing for 30 years, and somehow I think, this is just my opinion, but somehow it subtly fell in between the two things and didn't quite do either. Some people back home said, no, that's all wrong, it's too American, and people here presumably think, what are we watching? We don't even understand it, So somehow, yeah, but it didn't quite work. And perhaps it was to do with, I don't know, that's how I saw it at the time.
As far as putting the older, traditional British audiences' noses out of joint.
Well, you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, I do, and that's actually going to lead me to another question. So last year we finally got to see your regeneration.
Hooray.
And it was a fantastic
17
noble death. But
are we dying?
How do you? Yes, and then you didn't realise I need 4 minutes to live. But what if you got bored?
Oh shit! They told me that.
But how do you feel about Sylvester McCoy's Doctor's death and the transition to yours? He steps out and he gets gunned down in the alleyway. Do you feel that was?
Well, all I know is McCoy seemed happy to do it.
Okay. Because I've heard several, Who fan critics say that really wasn't the best way for McCoy to go.
Listen, you're talking to someone that's like, I had countless. Listen, I had a lot of good feedback. And I've had some great feedback since about it. But I would also get messages. This even predates Twitter, I think this is in the 90s. I get messages saying, you were a waste of a regeneration, and there's some people who had strong feelings about it. And those things, I suppose there will always be that strength of feeling. Some people already say, Capaldi, we don't like him, and that's the way it is with these things. But I know McCoy himself was very happy about it, and he should know. He was happy to kind of resolve that at the time.
So earlier on you mentioned about William Hartnell and him wearing a wig, and I think most people know the infamous story about the wig and your feelings on it. And on Friday,
you haven't got the wig in the box. Which particular wig is this?
Is there anything in particular you would like to say to the wig?
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to ceremoniously burn it. The same way that I burned my school blazer the day I left school. Along with all the other kids in my class who had this paraffin over it set fire to it. I didn't like it, as you well know. And it came out of a box. Because when I arrived on the set in Vancouver, we made it in Vancouver in '96. My hair, I just played this soldier boy part back in England. And my hair was it was a buzz cut. Philip Siegel freak. But I said, don't worry, listen. We can do what we like. This is a new beginning. He said, why don't we put the Doctor in a leather jacket? So I had a bit of a funds fixation at the time. And I said, we can make him a bit more street. And Siegel said, what are you insane? Are you mad? No, the Doctor's got to be soft. He's got to wear velvet. Anyway, yeah. And he won the arguments, and there was no time to fit me for a wig, because a wig's a serious thing for the makeup people, and they literally got one out of a box. It was someone else, anyway. So they put this thing on, and because you don't just sit a wig on your head, you have to glue it. You have to glue it on with spirit glue. Anyway, even thinking about it now makes me want to cry. And so it's like having, what is it, Botox, like that. That's why in all those pictures I'm just I was happy inside.
Now you mentioned.
But you know what? And he said, there's no way you're going to get away with that. What do you mean leather jacket? This is nothing different. 2 years later, look at Atkinson. I could have cried. I did cry. He stole my thunder.
That leads into, 2010.
I'm feeding you questions.
Yeah, the Big Finish audio, and in 2010 you did get input into designing a new outfit.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that outfit and how that kind of came about being?
It came about simply because the photographs that when I first started to come to shows like this, and we took photographs to sign, and of course the only photographs that existed were sort of already 15 years old. They were a little bit, I don't know, and much as I loved the movie, they were the only ones that we had. The costume, it was what it was. And we were in New Zealand, I think, and the guy who ran the show now said, you know what, Paul, he said, if you rang the BBC or you spoke to someone, you could persuade them to let you do whatever you wanted. Get another costume, make one up of your own, and a look of your own, and we could just do some new photographs. This was simply to make new photographs. So I called the BBC. Anyway, it's like calling the Kremlin. And eventually, after about a month, I was put through to the proper person. We didn't even have a name there, a number, I think, or some name in London. Anyway, and they said, okay, go ahead, and we'll look the other way. And so I made this thing. We invented this simple costume. It was the leather jacket. I finally did the leather jacket thing. I got rid of my fun's fixation, and it was this. My father, my late father, I adored, was a sailor, like all the men in my family. And this was a peacoat, what they called a peacoat. It was a 19th century American sailor's outfit. So we made this thing in leather, because I always thought, well, the Doctor was a Voyager, and I just wanted, it's a link to my dad, right, for the Freudians in the world. So we did that, I took the bag, I used my real hair for once. We made some new photographs, and that was really the story of it. But of course, when we came to do the Night of the Doctor, nobody talked about it. It was just quietly forgotten about. So they still haven't mentioned it. Nobody mentioned it. But they made me wear. I was glad to wear in the Night of the Doctor. Something proper. Canon. It's a great word, canon, isn't it? I never heard the word until I was on Doctor Who. Canon.
So would you say generally you're pleased with the outfit for Night of the Doctor?
Yeah, I was thrilled with it. I didn't have any input into that at all. Because again, I think that was part of the secrecy of the thing, and the speed at which we shot the Night of the Doctor. It was really quick, and we shot it in a day and a bit. When I got there, this costume was there. So it was literally put the trousers on, put the coat on, say these lines.
Now, as of yet, the toy companies.
Incidentally, when we broke for lunch during that day of Night of the Doctor, this costume was kind of hot, so I left it hanging there. When I got back, Moffat was wearing it. He had the coat on, and he was saying to Mark Gatiss, take my picture, man, take my picture. So don't tell him I told you, right?
So, yeah, that outfit, and I'm sure a lot of other collectors are looking forward to when the action figure of that outfit is released.
Is there not one already?
Not yet. In the meantime, you have to make do.
What about the one with like the interchangeable heads? That's kind of cool.
That's what I was going to say, because I've heard
You
that
have my head in the back.
Find it kind of a bit disturbing here.
Imagine how disturbing it is when it's actually your head. Your shocking head. That looks like my dad, isn't it? Great laser bar.
Because in the packaging, John Hurt has a head and a body, and you're the sort of floating, decapitated head.
It's kind of weird.
And
I don't have to like it.
And I remember you saying on Friday that John Hurt was a very inspirational actor to you.
Yeah, he was. He was the reason, well, one of the chief reasons that I wanted to be an actor. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and Claudius, for those older people in the room, was on, which I loved. John Hurt was fantastic. And I remember I was about 13 years of age and saying to my father, is that a job? Do people like, is acting a job? Is that a profession? What is it? Yeah, man. He said that he'll get paid for that. And that was the first, I'm thinking suddenly the cogs at work. I mean, well, I could do that. I really want to try and do that. So I went back into school and tried to get into the school plays. And I met John Hurt for the first time, only recently. Even when we shot Night of the Doctor, he wasn't there. I turned into him, but he wasn't there. I even played him at one point. That arm you see, that's what was with me. And I met him, and I got a bit starstruck. And I was quite by surprise. I never really get starstruck at all. And I didn't know what to say to him. And I could tell, I was kind of just blabbing to him, and I could tell by the look in his eyes, he just wanted to get rid of me, you know. Get out of my way, get out of my way. But then what was great is that we ended up on, and I just wanted to tell him, and I didn't have the courage to tell him, you know, that you were the reason that I should have done. I wish I'd have had more courage. But we ended up on a panel. We did one of these shows in London. And I didn't know that Stephen Moffat was going to be there and John Hurt was going to be there. And we ended up doing a panel, just the three of us. And it was one of the best days of my life. And the great thing was, of course, that because Moffat was there, I don't know if he's ever done a panel since, or if he doesn't at all. But the good thing for me that day was that he personally could field all these questions that normally we get asked. You know? Yeah, when is he coming back? You know, when's a new series and stuff? And Stephen had to do all the talking, so we were happy. But John Hurt didn't say a word. He just sat there looking magnificent.
So John Hurt got you into acting, and
He doesn't know that.
Your brothers are also actors. Does that mean you were responsible for getting them into acting?
We kind of, my sibling, yeah, there's 4 boys in my family, and we're all actors. We have a sister as well. She's the brilliance in the family. Now she's a lawyer. She's a trained scientist. Fantastic. You know, somebody had to be proper. But she's a baby. But yeah, all the boys are actors. But we became. Well, I trained. I did go to a drama school in London and train. But we ended up, me and my brothers, because we're all musicians as well. We wanted to be in bands. And Liverpool's one of them cities. It's a bit like, I'm sure you've got musical cities here, you know, like Nashville and those places. Every kid plays or kicks a football, you know. We were in bands as kids. And we all ended up in a show together. When I was 20, so Stephen would have only been 18. And that's how it started. And they've all been actors since, you know. And they've done really well. We've all made a living doing it, which is the trick, really. So yeah, and what it was it was a show called Yakety Yak, and it was a thing. It was terrible, but it was brilliant. You don't remember? You're not old enough to remember.
Oh, okay.
It was a big. It was 1982, right? So you weren't even born.
Oh.
I was 9. And later on, and it was like the big West End London smash of that year, because it was like one of those shows that was brilliant, terrible. It had it had brilliant elements of it, but it was also really crap at the same time. And it became this cult smash. And I remember we even had to do midnight shows, midnight matinees, so the rest of the West End would come and see it. That's how much of a hit it was. And me and my brothers all played these. It was a 50s thing. Again, now I sound like I'm Fonz again, but it was this 50s thing set in New York, but it was all around the music of Lieber and Stoller. Jerry Lieber, Mike Stoller, you know, these giants of American music. And we all did these corny American accents. You know, it was so terrible. And there was this group called the Darts, this British group, this sort of retro jazz doo-wop group. It was them, it was us, and anyway, it took off. And my brothers have been actors ever since.
Does your brother Mark ever give you a hard time for beating him out to play the Doctor?
Maybe he gives me a hard time to someone else, but not to my face. But you know what? Because we've all been actors for all these years. You know what we did? We decided early on. And you know, my brothers, there's only 5 years between the 4 of us, so we're all the same age, really. And for the first 7 or 8 years, we all shared an agent. We had the same agent. And it kind of worked out. And the good thing was that, I don't know, I'm sure there's people here with close siblings. And often the mistake people outside your family make is they think you're all the same. You look the same, you might be the same kind of people. When of course you're completely different personalities. And we were, and are. And even different actors. And so this agent could see that. And so she was able to represent the 4 of us. And in case from time to time we'd go up with the same things like Mark and I did with Dr. Who. But generally it worked. But we decided early on that we would never talk about work outside of work. And in the 30 odd years that we've all been actors, we've worked together twice. all together. That Yak is a Yak show. And a show later, the year before the Doctor Who movie, we did a show about the Irish family in Ireland, a BBC series called The Hanging Game. And that's the 2 times we've worked together. But outside of that, we never ever discuss work. Because we just find it helps. Because probably we'd never talk about anything else. And it saves egos. And so it's only our mother that knows, even now, what everyone else is doing. So, like, Joe might get a great job. I don't find out until Mum tells me. Because she's like information central. And that's it, so it keeps everything just not a big deal.
Was it true your role in The Hanging Gale was actually the image that inspired Siegel as far as the Doctor?
That's right.
So you inspired the
In
Doctor.
fact, I found a picture and I wish I had it now. Anyone that might have been to my table over the weekend might have seen this image. When we made The Hanging Gale, this Irish story, I played a priest. It was set in 1845. I played an Irish priest in Donegal. And so, you know, it's a dark frock coat, long hair, and it's doctorish. And Siegel, who I'd never met that year, must have seen it. And when he did see it, he told me later. And he said he saw this thing. He said, "Who is that? That's my doctor. That's who I want for my doctor." And he found my number and he called me up. And it was based on the way that I looked in this thing. So I brought this picture with me this weekend, just as a curiosity. But when you see it, you go, yeah, no, I can see what it is. And I had my own long hair in those days, which is why he freaked when I arrived with no hair.
Okay, I've got a couple more things before we're going to hand over to questions.
Yeah, then you can do the talking.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt that you are the steampunk Doctor Who.
I agree.
And I have to say, because I'm big into steampunk, I run the Steampunk Symposium in Cincinnati. And I think it does lend as to why you are my favorite Doctor. How do you feel about this moniker of being, the steampunk Doctor?
I really like it. I like that, because it's territory that none of the others has, anyway. And I really like steampunk, as an idea, as a genre. Yeah, listen, that's one of the things that I like best. Was that the right answer? This is steampunk here. So,
I've got one last thing for my poems.
uh-oh. Tremble, earthlings.
As the steampunk Doctor, and this being your first visit to Ohio, I would like to present to you the Ohio Steampunk pin as a little souvenir of your visit. So there you go, sir.
Oh, would you like to test it?
I'll leave that to you. I'll be very, very good.
I shall wear it with pride.
Well, thank you very much.
How about that? Thank you.
All right. And earlier, I asked you a bit of a favor. We're kind of copying an idea.
Did I say yes?
You did. You even looked at the script. Some of you may recall.
Well, I looked at the script because I didn't have my glasses on. It was just a piece of paper.
Well, we went to Kinko's and we made it in large copy. Some of you may recall that last year at DragonCon, Sylvester McCoy was given the challenge of taking the Hello Stonehenge speech from the Pandorica Opens episode and putting his own interpretation. Earlier today, I asked Paul if he'd be willing to give us his interpretation. And are you okay with people filming? I mean, I don't have paid you to film.
It would be silly not to.
Okay. This might be something that you want to get your cameras out for, because we want to see this all over YouTube, so that everybody knows that the Cincinnati Comic Expo, Paul McGann gave the best performance.
Oh no pressure! Does that mean I have to shout my head off or something?
Not necessarily shout, because one of the Doctor's cool, calm, and collected, and as I was saying, in the episode, there's this object called the Pandorica.
Yeah.
Every one of your single enemies ever is floating around the planet Earth because they want this.
Yeah.
You've got it, it's buried underneath Stonehenge, and basically, in true, sort of Scouser way, you're saying, come on, have a go if you're out enough, who's going to come first?
Shall I do it? Yeah. Whatever happens, you'll still love me.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, now I can see it. That is big. That's infantilizing, isn't it? That's like, it's giving me like letters this.
So you're addressing all the different names.
All right, stop it. You're piling the pressure on.
That's what I'm hoping to tell people I directed Paul McGann.
Here it is. It's going to have to be the radio version, I'm afraid. Okay. Everyone and Chrissy. Hello, Stonehenge. Who takes the Pandorica takes the universe. But bad news, everyone, because guess who? Ha! Except you lot, you're all whizzing about. It's really very distracting. Could you all just stay still a minute? Because I am talking. Now the question for the hour is, who has got the Pandorica? Answer? I do. Next question. Who is coming to take it from me? Come on, look at me. No plan, no backup, no weapons, worth a damn. Oh, and something else. I don't have anything to lose. So if you're sitting up there in your silly spaceships with your silly little guns, and you've got any plans on taking the Pandorica tonight, just remember who's standing in your way. Remember, every black day I ever stopped you, and then, do the smart thing. Let somebody else try first. Know what I mean?
Anybody else doing that presentation? Congratulations, sir. You are in the group.
It's like Caliphrate's Got Talent.
All right.
Did I win?
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a microphone, and sorry, Guy, I'm afraid you're going to have to be a better word. We have a microphone here in the aisle. If you could
Up your knees, man.
If you could form a line. Now, a couple of things. I got a suspicion we're going to have a lot of people with questions, so a couple of things not to do. Don't come up to the microphone and say, this is more of a statement than a question. And also, this question is in 5 parts. Because we do want to kind of share the microphone, and if we have time at the end, maybe you can come back and ask the extra question. And also, please, no special favors, remember, we don't give your address, etc. All right, so please, with the first question for Mr. McGann.
Incidentally, who knew that Fats Waller came from Cincinnati? I didn't know that. Fats Waller. And so did the Isley Brothers, and so did Doris Day. Come from this town. What?
Rod Sterling.
Exactly. Rod Sterling. Fats Waller, my hero.
My personal favorite thing about her, silent movie actress. She's from here.
Is she from here as well? This is Rosemary Clinton.
Yeah.
This is the center of the universe. You know what? I think I found my hometown.
All right, please, I'm going to shut up.
Alright, for things to do in your free time while you're here, grab some Skyline chili and some graters.
You know my problem with the chili? I don't eat meat. I'm a non-meat eater.
They have vegetarian! Yeah!
You know what? A couple of times I've said I'm a vegetarian the last couple of days, and being looked at with something approaching amused pity.
I'm so sorry for those people, they just don't understand.
You don't understand. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. This is sort of a really silly question, but we understand that you're a Time Lord. So can you do the Time War?
What is it? What is it? Oh, that thing.
Richard O'Brien's a little dizzy.
Oh, that thing. I wish. You'll have to teach it to me.
I can.
Can you?
Yeah. Do you want to come down here and get a quick lesson?
Are you ready to show?
I can.
It's just a jump to the left
Take the jump to the left.
and a step to the right.
Oh,
More
that thing.
times.
That
You bring your knees in tight. How about maybe if Mr. McGann comes back to the next Time Travelers Ball, we play that as an early song, and that may be a good time.
Do I have to wear tights?
That's entirely serious.
Alright, you're on.
go back and reference a lot of your older doctors. You're in a little bit of a different spot where you're still current, but we also have our TV doctor. Is there anything from the modern era that you have incorporated into your doctor?
Wow, not consciously, actually. But perhaps by accident. You know what I was really pleased at? Peter Capaldi's got my chair. He's got my chair in the times. So like the little elements that made it. And you know what, it's great because it wasn't so long ago that I was sad that the 8th Doctor was really, I felt he was really kind of marginalised. He was like, even on the photographs, you know, he'd be like the little guy that appeared in a sort of puff of smoke right at the back at the top corner. And just, you know, in the last few years, he's come more and more to the fore, which is, you know, I feel really happy.
I'm happy about it.
Vindicated.
I hope that we see more.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hello.
Hi.
How elegant you look.
Thank you. Once upon a time, the 8th Doctor regenerated into the 9th Doctor. Before Stephen Moffat kind of retconned that for the 9th Doctor, did you ever have any kind of personal headcanon as to how your Doctor went out? How you got to become the leather jacket Fawn's Doctor?
I did. And what, you know, because it's like thinking about your own death. It's not something you often get engaged with people about. Yeah, the thing is, I had a lot of ideas. We made the pilot, and you know, there was a chance, of course, it could go to series. And the pilot was what it was. It was a little bit like, I don't know, shooting that pilot was a little bit like doing a driving test. You know, we were never going to have to drive like that again in our lives. You know, we'd be able to do the things that we planned, we discussed, and we wanted to do. And part of that was that kind of thing. You know, was all the stuff about the regeneration. So, yeah, I have my own idea of the story, but then it doesn't matter anymore. This is the beauty of Doctor Who. It's like histories, counter-histories. I was interested to read the other day, like there are novels, proper novels of this thing, that have a completely different history. You know, it goes off at, other tangents, even particularly about the Time War and those things. But they're all relevant, I think, and that's the beauty of it. So, whatever your opinion is, and whatever, some people just have a single opinion about things. It's all part of it, it's all... That sounds like a politician talking. Sorry, yeah, I did, but I don't want to tell you. I should have just said I don't want to tell you, like 2 minutes ago.
It's okay, I don't mind extra interactions.
Yeah. Thank you. Hello.
For the suggestion for tomorrow, I would go to Washington Park. It's beautiful. It's downtown. Bring a book or, whatever you want, a coffee. Maybe go to Coffee Emporium.
The coffee is good.
Delicious, yeah. So my question is, as Matt gave Peter some suggestions on how to do his doctor, and David gave Matt suggestions, did Sylvester give you any suggestions that you felt were particularly meaningful or anything?
Yeah, I did, and curiously, at the same time, those of you here on Friday might have heard me tell, my agent at the time had been a Doctor Who companion. And I didn't know, simply because she never told me. It was Janet Fielding who played Tina. That was my agent at the time. Yeah, so in another life, she'd stopped being an actress and she'd become an agent. And that was my agent, weirdly. And so I had advice from both of them when we arrived in Vancouver to shoot the movie. I had stereo advice, and I was glad of it. McCoy, more than anything, calmed me down about it, I think, and told me that it was okay to enjoy it, And Janet was a little bit more. She was keen, I think because she was my agent, she was keen to warn me, because I don't think she didn't think that I had quite. She didn't think that I knew what I'd let myself in for. And she may have been right. But how weird is that? That was my agent at the time. And when we got to the set, forgive me if you've heard the story before, But when we got to the set in Vancouver, and on the opening shoot, the first night, it was all night shoots, she was there. Janet was there, she'd come to check the hotels and things. And there were some fans around, some young kids, and it was brand new for me, I didn't know what to expect. And the kids went to her. And I said, what are they doing? What's happening? This is like 1 o'clock in the morning in the street in the city in Vancouver. And there was one kid in particular, I remember, just a kid, 19, 20 years old. And I heard him telling Janet every episode she'd ever been in. Wow. It was only when he left that she said, now you understand. Now you see how it is and how it's going to be. Yeah, so I had advice from them. And I was glad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Your pleasure.
May I just interject a moment? I do apologize to a number of people in the back of the line. I thought we had more time than we did. But in a few minutes, about 5 minutes, Mr. McGann is going to have to go back down to the show floor. But I kind of wonder whether maybe some of those questions, if you go visit Mr. McGann at his table. So the person in the red fez, you're going to be the last question. I'm sorry, so sorry to all the people behind you. But again, and it's sorry, my fault, I thought we had more time. But if we could just sort of do kind of a quick fire, because we've got about 5 minutes before Mr. McGann is due to be elsewhere.
All right, hey, first off, I wanted to thank you for accepting the role as the doctor. And me and a bunch of my mates, we love you, man. You're our favorite doctor. Dave Doctor.
Glad to hear.
And, we were left with this very fine movie that was, at the time, it had state-of-the-art special effects. We have an art book that showed where the series was going to go with like the Cybermen looking like Indian cyborgs. Art book's great if you can find it. And 4 graphic novels. I found this place in Indiana called Who North America, whona.com, and they have all your audios. Yeah, all your audios.
They hunt you down on the show
I
floor.
swept through it. So it's like we have this big giant library of 8th Doctor stuff out there. And I just had to ask, if BBC wanted to perhaps reopen that, would you be open to it, or are you kind of,
To doing what?
Like say if they said if they had a spin-off with like an 8th Doctor Adventures or something.
Listen, I'll be there in a heartbeat.
More audio dramas as well, or do you know yet? Do you know if there will be more audio dramas as well? Or?
Well, I know that because we're going to do some more when I get home next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Stop talking.
Like I said, we are really down to the wire in true Doctor Who drama fashion, so perhaps we can keep the questions a bit shorter. Thank you.
Will you stop talking then, and then we can go more time.
I just want to know what was going through your mind when you asked to be the doctor.
Terror.
Yeah.
Terror. No, I was thrilled, but like I said before, I didn't quite know what I was letting myself in for. Because once you work on it, you're in it forever. It's a big thing. Most of the day I've done hundreds of acting jobs in my life, but there's only one of these. The rest of the others you can just, you can walk away from, leave behind, talk about it if you want. But this is different. And that was different. And it dawns on you in the first few weeks. As it will be dawning on Peter Capaldi now. You're in it forever. So terror.
Thank you.
A nice kind of terror. Hello.
So I'm just wondering, just looking back, are you wishing that they had actually continued with the series that the movie had intended to be the pilot of, or are you content with how it had?
You have to be content. When you work as an actor, there are so many times, almost weekly, that you get rejected for things are near miss, things you thought were going to be great don't turn out so well, things and the opposite. So it's all in the abstract of what could have been, that door I never opened, that stuff that never happened. Sure, when it doesn't happen, of course you're disappointed for a few days, but then something else comes along. It was a really near miss. When we shot the pilot in Vancouver, I remember my children were small then, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old. And because it might have happened, we looked for schools in Vancouver because we could have lived there for 5 years. My kids have been little Canadians. We looked for houses in the bed. Yeah. So life could have been different. But as soon as it failed, it's over. Go home. Forget about it. So that's what working as an actor is. You never know what's going to happen 6 weeks hence, and it's not even worth thinking about what could have happened. 6 years ago, so that's how it is.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Hello.
Hello. In the movie, the doctor made a statement that the anesthesia in the hospital almost destroyed the regenerative process.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any knowledge on that statement, or...
I wish I did.
I wish you did too.
This is one of those things. I was telling everyone on Friday. From time to time, I've been asked questions on panels, and I just haven't known the answer. Last year in Chicago, I said I made an answer. I don't know the answer to that. And the woman who asked the question said, "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" And everyone laughed in the room, and everyone went, "Yeah, it's like so." But she meant it, man. Yeah, some people take it seriously. Yeah, listen, I'm playing catch up as well with a lot of things. When we did, I just remember because it happened fast, the whole thing, and I was nervous, and a lot of the import of the material I didn't really understand until afterwards. When we did it, it's like kissing the girl or Grace. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it meant anything. I just did as I was told, and that was the case in point. It's like the half human thing. I'm human. I didn't know that was going to be contentious. We just didn't know at the time. So we were a little bit naive, I think. But sometimes naive is the best way to be. Hi.
Hello, Doctor.
Hello to yourself. Good man yourself.
For a good suggestion for what to do in Cincinnati, visit the Museum Center. It inspired the Hall of Justice. It's a great Art Deco building.
You know what? I'm going to
really
start
cool.
with that. I'm going to start with that.
It's a couple blocks away from here. You would easily be able to bike it.
Okay.
And I'm curious, in a Doctor Who story, if you could meet a historical person or an artist like Van Gogh, Hitler, Churchill, along those lines, who would it be? Or Nixon?
Or Nixon.
Or just anyone. Those were just examples.
Not Nixon. I don't want to be Nixon. I've met enough tricky dickies in my life. Who would it be? Who would it be? You know what I think it would be? Scott Fitzgerald. I'd like to meet Scott Fitzgerald in 1922. Just so I can be the one to tell him, don't worry, man. It's going to be a hit. You're going to die before you even see it, but it's going to be okay. The Gatsby's going to be a huge hit. I want to be the one to tell him that. He'd probably punch me in the nose. Yeah, Scott Fitzgerald. I'm obsessed about the Great Gatsby.
And who would the supernatural villain be? Who would the supernatural villain be?
I think it would be Jonathan Harker from the Dragons. You know why? Because I lived with one of his descendants. There you go. I never don't say that, Julie. You look fantastic.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could have any other companion, who would it be?
What, someone else's companion?
Yeah, one of the other doctors.
You know what, if I tell you what I really think, then it'll be embarrassing because it'll be giving away a huge crush that I have on this person. I'll get into trouble. But suffice it to say, I'm slightly in love with someone. But, you know what? I think it would be Ace. I think it would be Ace. I think, for some reason, and I really think it would be Ace. I want Ace. Yeah. There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the questions, and thank you very much, Mr.
Thanks,
McGann.
everyone. I love you all.